Ah, yes, the Home Run Derby, one of my favorite events of the year. It's when everyone's having a good time, joking around with their friends, and everyone's just hitting piss missiles all over the place. But with Shohei Ohtani last week announcing that he's going to be entering the Home Run Derby, as well as Pete Alonso announcing that he's going to be defending his crown, I decided to come up with what I think is the perfect Home Run Derby in 2021. Before I get started, if you can, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, hit whatever buttons there are, I don't care. And just a disclosure, all of the numbers that I'm about to read are as of right now, and they could change at any moment, so please don't hate me in the comments. For our number 1 seed, we will have Pete Alonso. He is the defending champion, so he automatically gets the number 1 seed. However, he's not having a great year in terms of power, only 11 home runs so far. However, he should be in this. He is the defending champion. He did set the rookie record in home runs with 53 back in 2019. Pete Alonso is an obvious choice for this contest. In the number 2 seed, I have Shohei Ohtani. He's currently tied for the lead in home runs in the major leagues with Vlad Jr. He ranks second in average exit velocity, and he's tied for the hardest hit ball this year at 119 miles per hour. Shohei Ohtani has been one of the game's most fun players this year. I think he should absolutely be in the Home Run Derby. In the number 3 seed, I have Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He's tied for the major league lead in home runs with Ohtani with 23. He ranks second in average exit velocity, and he has the third hardest hit ball this year at 117.4 miles per hour. Vlad Jr. just hits bombs all over the place. He's been in a home run derby before. I think Vlad Jr. is an easy choice for the home run derby. In the number 4 seed, I have Fernando Tatis Jr. He currently ranks third in the major leagues with 22. He's 13th in average exit velocity, but most importantly, he's one of the next bright stars in this game. He's one of the most fun players in this game. Fernando Tatis Jr. needs to be in the Home Run Derby. Hopefully, he can just stay healthy enough to participate. For the number 5 seed, I have Rhonda Cooney Jr. He's currently 4th in home runs with 20. He ranks 5th in average exit velocity. He has the 4th hardest hit ball this year at 117.2 miles per hour. He's one of today's brightest stars. He's a face of the game, and he's going to be a face of the game for years to come. In the number 6 seed, to have Rafael Devers. He currently ranks 7th in home runs with 18, and he ranks 6th in average exit velocity. Rafael Devers is one of the good young players in the game today. He hits the ball a ton. Rafael Devers would be a great choice for the Home Run Derby. In the number 7 seed, I have Aaron Judge. He's currently tied for 5th in home runs with 15 in the American League, but he ranks 1st overall in average exit velocity, and he is tied with Shohei Ohtani for the hardest hit ball this year at 119 miles per hour. A New York Yankee in the Home Run Derby, you can't go wrong with that. And last but not least, in the number 8 seed, I have Freddie Freeman, the MVP from last year, winning an MVP after starting off the year with COVID. He has 16 home runs currently on the year, which ties him for 5th in the National League. I think Freddie Freeman would be a great choice for the Home Run Derby. So that's the field that I think should be in the Home Run Derby this year, but let's not stop there. Let's imagine that this would be the field, and let's see how it would play out. For our first round matchups, we would have Pete Alonso versus Freddy Freeman, Fernando Tatis Jr. versus Rhonda Cooney Jr., Shohei Ohtani versus Aaron Judge, and Vlad Jr. versus Rafael Devers. First up, we have Pete Alonso versus Freddie Freeman, and I think Pete Alonso moves on here. Yes, the power is a little down this year, but Pete Alonso's the defending champion. I think Pete Alonso will be able to get by Freddie Freeman, who hasn't really had too much success in home run derbies before. Moving down in the bracket, we have an electric matchup between Fernando Tatis Jr. and Rhonda Cooney Jr., two of the next bright stars in the game. While I think this would be a very close matchup, I think Rhonda Cooney Jr. would barely get by and advance to the second round. While Fernando Tatis Jr. and Rhonda Cooney Jr. are both tied in barrels per plate appearance, Rhonda Cooney Jr. has a higher average exit velocity, and I think because of Fernando Tatis Jr. dealing with some injuries this year, I think Acuna barely gets by. Moving on to the other side of the bracket, we have Shohei Ohtani versus Aaron Judge. While they both do have the hardest hit ball this year at 119 miles per hour, and while Aaron Judge does have a slightly higher average exit velocity, I think Shohei Ohtani moves on to the next round simply due to the fact that he has a much better barrels per plate appearance than Judge. I think Ohtani moves on to the second round. And in our last matchup of the first round, we have Vlad Guerrero Jr. versus Rafael Devers. And I think Vlad Guerrero Jr. moves on with ease. Vlad Jr. has been in a home run derby before. This would be Devers' first home run derby. Vlad Jr. has a higher average exit velocity. I think Vlad Jr. moves on to face Ohtani in the semifinals. In our first semifinal matchup, we have Pete Alonso versus Rhonda Cooney Jr., and I think Rhonda Cooney Jr. moves on to the finals. Pete Alonso's not having a great year in terms of power, only 11 home runs on the year, while Rhonda Cooney Jr. ranks near the top. Acuna Jr. has a higher average exit velocity. He has more barrels per plate appearance. I think time runs up for Pete Alonso, and he's unable to defend his crown from 2019. Rhonda Cooney Jr. moves on to the finals. And in our other semifinal matchup, we have an epic contest between Shohei Ohtani and Vlad Jr. While Ohtani and Vlad Jr. are tied for the lead in home runs this year so far, and while Vlad Jr. does have a slightly higher average exit velocity than Ohtani, I think due to the fact that Ohtani gets more barrels on the ball than Vlad Jr. does, I think Ohtani moves on to the finals to face Acuna Jr. So in the finals, we have Shohei Ohtani versus Rhonda Cooney Jr. These two are very evenly matched. They have very similar average exit velocities. They both rank near the top in home runs. But in the end, I think because Shohei Ohtani has a higher barrels per plate appearance this year than Ronald Acuna Jr., I think Ohtani finds a way to get it done when all the smoke is cleared. In 2021, Shohei Ohtani will be your Home Run Derby champion. So those are my thoughts on the Home Run Derby this year. Tell me what you think down below in the comments. Would you want someone else to be in the Home Run Derby this year? Do you think someone else will win the Home Run Derby? Let me know what you think. But that's all I have for right now. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.